Imagine buying land in the metaverse for $80 and then reselling that same land for $18,000. Now, with that capital, you then go and start a leading studio within the metaverse space and creating high-end brand activations. Today, we're joined by Eduardo, which is the founder of MetaTheory and Blockway, and he's going to walk us through why your favorite brands are in the metaverse. But let's find out what MetaTheory actually does.
Our core business for the past 4 years is to create immersive experiences in different platforms. I think you and I were discussing like the term metaverse in the previous call that, we can say that we're building the metaverse, but for some, it's not actually the metaverse. So what I like to say is that we bring brands or just generally IPs to our public platforms for people to play, socialize, and engage with those experiences. So when I say experience, I mean, it can be like a digital twin, it can be a game, it can be whatever we feel like it's the right move for, for a brand in a certain 3D space. So I can mention a few platforms, so maybe it's easier to understand. We'll build on Fortnite, Roblox, Sandbox, Spatial. So we go from very gamified platforms to very hyper-realistic platforms. And yeah, all we do is just try to get a sense of the need of a brand to get to a certain audience. It can be Gen Z, or sometimes it's just to leverage the platform as a tool. For example, we have been working with a museum recently, and we had to replicate the digital twin of the museum to let everybody else just be there for a different part of the world, because you cannot come. It was in the US, so not everybody could come to the US to actually, be there. So it was a way for them to just interact with the potential clients and just let them be more able to just interact at least with those art pieces, maybe with VR or just, jump into the PC. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do.
In this next part, we're going to hear all about Eduardo's challenges and unique insight he's gained from his hands-on approach and how he's got his hands dirty within the metaverse space.
I guess we started there because there was no offer. I mean, the market was not offering good platforms to build. That was one of the reasons. And the second reason was that we were kind of like captured by the concept of NFTs at that time. And I'm talking about like 2019, 2020. And at that time was fairly new. We found the platform was combining the 3D experience with the ownership of lands and all those assets. So it was very interesting, the mix of both worlds. And so that was the first platform that was kind of like aligned with our visions, kind of. And so we started digging more there, bought a lot of lands back in early 2020, I think it was May 2020. And then we sold them a year and a half later for so much. We didn't expect to do it because when we were buying them, there was no metaverse concept. Facebook was still Facebook and all that stuff. So the stuff that we were buying, at $80, and we sold them like for each at like 15, 18K. And so we were like, okay, well, that's massive. There is demand. Then we kind of like, Sandbox for us was like a starting point. It gave us the capital, gave us kind of like a first work experience to understand how to properly set up a business of that kind. Because right now, building experiences is still a niche, but you see a lot of brands also raising a lot of capital. So they are able to explain the business model to VCs. There is one big studio that raised 35 million in a couple of years ago. So yeah, now it's a bit easier to understand what we do, but at that time it was kind of hard. So it was just slow start for us.
Yeah. So just going back to that initial first investment into Sandbox, I think you said the first $80 it was, or €80, £80.
$80 was $80. Yeah, per land. Yeah.
You must have knew something for investing into that. What was it that you knew before investing into that, or did you just buy it just for the sake of buying it, or maybe just because it was cool?
Well, I guess so. There was no strategic moves behind it. Like for us, yeah, just I don't want to come here and say we've done the math and stuff like that, because we didn't. Uh, we're more like uh, we want to build in this space, and one of the first things that you had to do, well, at least we did it at that time, because you couldn't really build on the property on the land. The concept was buy a land, build an experience on top of a land, and then publish in the map. And of course, the narrative was scarcity. That we had this map at that time was very new, and so the concept was, okay, there is a certain amount of land. I think it was 166k land, something like this. And I say, okay, well, maybe one day, if everybody recognizes this concept, this price will go up. But of course, my idea of go up was more like from $80 to 200, maybe, if I'm lucky. Yeah. So no,
Wow.
we were never like expected something like that. I think anybody.
After Eduardo sold the land he bought in the sandbox, did he see a rise in brand activations in the sandbox?
So when we sold a lot of lands at that time was kind of like the peak, because it was November 2021, and then there were already brands doing activations. I think it was like a lot of movie IPs and just series. I think it was The Walking Dead. I was the last one at that time, was in September. They released in September and sold in November. But also others. I don't remember exactly. Like right now, they have so many IPs in the map. But I think by November 2021, there were like 10, 15 maybe. But yeah, consumers were there when we started in 2020. Consumers only, because we were like also one of the first 6 developers. So we were kind of like getting all the things that that had to be done. Like if you wanted to do something, if you just have 6 developers, everybody will know. All of them will know what you want to do. Consumers a lot. Yeah, brands. I think in 2021 they started joining, and I think the trend is still going up, because right now we started with Sandbox. We're platform agnostic, let's say. So we want to build in all platforms, because we feel like that all platforms can kind of like give different possibilities, and they have different values. So if you see like recent numbers, it's just going up. Like in the past year, I think there were like more than 500. In 2020, more than 500 brand activations in general. Metaverse platform, like immersive platforms. The trend is going definitely up, because they see value. You can tell, like, for example, I don't know if you watched the Amazon Prime Fallout series. Yeah, and like they, of course, they have this massive production of the series, and then they have the franchise is a massive IP, and then when they had to launch the series, they as every important company, they do a multi-channel activation in different areas with different goals and everything around marketing. They need to market the series, they need to make money, but they can also monetize some other ways. They need to make brand awareness, so this just gonna go into this platform, into this social. And one of them was Fortnite. They're launching on Fortnite, kind of like an activation of the brand. And if you see companies adding to their kind of like portfolio of marketing tools, immersive platforms, then you start understanding that they see the value as you do. They're trying to get there. They're making like some small steps, because of course, when you have a marketing budget, you need to kind of like take a piece of it and then test on new platforms, on experimenting. And we see this a lot right now. So yeah, I guess companies, B2B in general, it's just the beginning, in my opinion.
It's been a surprise to see established brands like Lamborghini and Hyundai venturing into Roblox, given that their traditional customer base might not be the primary demographic of these platforms. But I'm curious to hear Eduardo's reasonings to why these established brands are making moves in the metaverse.
I think that it's very misunderstood. You cannot, if you're so used to common marketing channels, just see how much time it took for big companies to make ads on Instagram. Maybe me and you, we were understanding Instagram like 6 years ago. It took most of them maybe in 2020 because there were only those were the only tools that were left, kind of, and they started testing a lot. I think the metaverse is the same because like we are understanding its potential. It's still in a very early phase, but still there is a lot of potential. It is misunderstood, undervalued, and I think that once people understand that you can basically create an entire 3D space, a branded entire 3D space, and have an interaction with the player, so it can be a potential buyer for like 10-15 minutes, because usually those experiences are lasting so much compared to traditional advertising. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Imagine like this room without windows, and the entire walls are gonna be with logos of the company, and I am playing football with a ball, and the ball itself is gonna be branded ball. So I'm playing, I'm having fun, and creating moments, I'm socializing, because of course I shouldn't be alone in the room. So I'm playing with others. Everything is branded. I'm making and creating moments, and I'm start seeing an attraction to that brand because that brand left me something, you know? So I think as a no-brainer, also if you see prices, if you see retention of immersive experiences rather than 2D scrolling, it will become, in my opinion, the leading channel. Well, I think that when you think about making an activation, there is the goal of, first of all, getting to the audience, because if you look at Roblox right now, they have a little bit more than 300 million users every month. So when you are thinking about that platform, you do it primarily to get in front of that audience, because at the end of the day, users, especially you made an example of Nike, which is very well established, and they have a range of the demographics is very wide, so they sell to like 10 years old or even less, 8 years old, but they also sell to 6 years old. So I'm not saying it's easy, but for them, it's not about they're gonna lose their clients at one point. I think that if you take the examples of companies that are selling to kids and then they stop selling to kids because that's their market, I think for them, making a step into these platforms and start nurturing those players at that young age will turn them into buyers one day. To answer the question, I think like definitely if I have to interact with the brand needs to be where I am. So if I am in Roblox more time than I am in TikTok, which based on the recent numbers, that's the truth. Like people are spending more time, players, when I mean players like under 16, are spending more time into Roblox rather than TikTok, YouTube, Netflix. If you think about it, if I am inside of that platform and I interact with your brand, I think it's more likely that I'm going to buy that piece of clothes from you because you were there. You were in front of me, showing me your brand in front of my favorite platform where I'm spending my time. Then, yeah, it's most likely that I'm going to buy from you. Yeah, it was kind of like the example I was trying to do before. Like if you take like Samsung, well, of course, I'm not their CMO, so I don't have the numbers. But I was talking 2 years ago in France with the VP of Metaverse of Samsung. I don't remember like somebody that was into the team of Metaverse for Samsung, And they were saying what you're asking me. Like they were saying, okay, what we want to do, since they're massive brands. So massive brands are not doing campaigns with conversion rates. They're not doing it specifically to sell because they need to go beyond that. They were looking for platforms to make activations and then basically set Samsung apart from the competition, getting inside of the daily, let's say, routine of those players, and with the goal of kind of like telling them that in 10 years, in 15 years, when you need to buy a fridge, when you need to buy a TV, when you need to buy a phone, Samsung gonna be the brand that you need to look for. Like Samsung is gonna be there for you, as it was like 10 years before, because you were playing with us. So Samsung is the brand for you. And that was the purpose. And there were no KPIs. There were no like conversion rates. There were no retention. Of course, that when you need to make the experience performing good. But yeah, the whole point was actually what you were saying, like literally, especially if you cannot sell because your brand is not selling to that range of age, you need to tell them that once they get older, they need to buy from you because you're the best. You were there. You had this Roblox experience, was so cool. And of course, this is a we're talking about really high level of marketing because you go beyond, some normal practices. Yeah, definitely. It's something they're doing already.
That's a very long-term play for like, major brands out there that are, looking to get into this space. In 2022, there was a massive bull run within the, the metaverse space. And that continued to go on for some time. We saw, major brands enter the space. We saw some artists, like Travis Scott, perform, which was amazing. So why are brands still building in the metaverse space post bull market?
I think because they see the value. Why would you spend that money twice, 3 times, 4 times if you're not seeing value on the platform, or just generally on the channel because they see it as a channel? I guess because they see value. The brands that are still here, it's because they understood the potential and they're just testing out. Like if you take Walmart as an example, they did 2 experiences, I think, or 1 experience. Just generally testing out the platform for 2 years before making a very successful experience in Roblox, which was Walmart Discovered. And first of all, they have the budget to do it, but they're not throwing money to stuff they don't believe, or at least not twice again. So,
Phygital. Phygital is a word that's been trending around the industry, but not for no reason. Imagine a world where you're able to create a digital item and then sell a copy of that item in the physical world. Now, I wanted to get Eduardo's perspective on Phygital and what's going on with it.
Yeah, this Phygital stuff, a lot. Well, a lot is a big word. Like recently, I was talking about Walmart Discovered. They made this collab with certain publishers in the map, or to certain creators. To do this Phygital activation. So they already tested this stuff. But generally, so you need to kind of like try to understand why they do it. Like, would it make sense? Like, why am I going digital to then go back to physical? Would that make sense? Like, what wasn't the reason to go digital because we can be more maybe cost efficient? We can reach more people. We can sell digital items. And why do people want to come back to physical? Like, if you have a good reason to do it, kind of like to go back and let people go back, then you should do it. Like, but I think based on also, like, it was a report, from Roblox last year, I think November, October, that they were giving out numbers based on some surveys that they did. It was like 50%, I don't remember exactly the numbers, but the vast majority of kids that are playing Roblox, they give way more value to digital collectibles in digital wearables rather than physical ones. So
Wow.
it's kind of like strange because, well, we are not young enough maybe to be on that level. But if you talk with kids like 10, 15 years old, like younger than us, they are actually giving more value to a Fortnite skin rather than a t-shirt. So then that was kind of like research that made a lot of brands testing this stuff. Because if you see the man that you're come there with an offer, but hey, I'm Nike. Here's my t-shirt, digital t-shirt. You can have it since you're giving more value to this digital t-shirt rather than the physical one. And maybe for some of them, it makes sense to go back to the physical and say, okay, you can also get the physical one. But I'm not sure if that bridge makes sense all the time.
Why do you think it makes sense all the time?
Well, I mean, well, first of all, you can literally sell at the same price. Like a digital wearable of $30, you can sell it for, I mean, you can sell it as well as you sell it the physical t-shirt at $30 because there is enough demand and enough perception but behind the digital item that you can literally get them pay the exact same price. So when you then run the numbers, does it make sense for you to have a physical store production of the t-shirts? You know, of course, the logistic part of shipping that item and refund policies, all that ecosystem that is so expensive rather than having just a digital item, maybe with limited copies that you can just easily send to kids or to players in general. It's so cost efficient, it's so beneficial on that economic side that when you start doing that very in the proper way, you don't want to come back, or at least you try to sell more digital rather than physical because it makes more sense on the numbers. That I think is a very important. I mean, it's a very easy positive aspect, digital items.
After speaking to Eduardo, I now want to get his takes on how brands can enter the metaverse and how they can do brand activations and what KPIs should they look out for. Let's hear him out.
First of all, they need to understand if they have a good reason to do it. I mean, sometimes it's just like a marketing stunt, and what I mean by that, of course, when the metaverse term was really hyped a year and a half ago, you make the activation just to be on the news and say, oh, this brand made an activation on the metaverse, so innovative, so just to have headlines. Okay, so that was the marketing stunt. Most of them maybe did it for that purpose, and I guess right now, and I mean, you can tell you saw a lot of brands and using the buzzword, let's say, and the association with the brand as kind of like the cutting edge brand going to like new digital realms, like that kind of stuff. Like right now, they need to make the due diligence to kind of like understand if the audience in the platform is the same audience that they want to sell their items right now, or they want to sell their items in the future. That's obviously this is the first point that every time you should take it into consideration. Because if I ask you, let's say you have an e-commerce, you have a product, you know where you need to put your products in order to be in front of the people that want to buy potentially your product. So you're gonna make all your decisions based on the making all of your efforts to achieve that goal. But of course, if I give you two platforms that you don't know, the first thing that you want to do is just understand, okay, it makes sense for me to spend time trying to make a placement of my product into this platform if that doesn't make sense, because I'm not gonna, if let's say you're gonna sell uh, give you an example of a product for the very young kids, like newborns. Give me an example of a product.
Nappies, teddy bears,
Teddy bears. Okay, teddy bears. So you know that your product is tied to a very specific range of age. Because if I'm going to go to a 40 years old, I'm not going to, maybe I can sell a teddy bear to somebody, but the 99% of that won't buy a teddy bear. So if you go blind on this, and you go to a platform that you don't know, but it's full of like 40, 50 years old, and you're selling teddy bears, why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense. Okay. So that's a big no. You shouldn't do it. So first of all, understand if where we are going, and this is maybe something obvious for people that are doing marketing, because that's the first thing that they do. But I think it applies also into these platforms, because you're analyzing, and you're fortunate enough, like that Roblox every quarter gives a very detailed description of everything they have in the platform, age, nationality, and everything about it. So inform yourself, and then if that makes sense, let's understand how you can do it. I think there are two different ways. Like when you want to get some brand awareness, let's say, maybe the first one is to do some small activations. So maybe associate yourself with established accounts or established experiences. Last week, Lamborghini did an activation with Driving Empire, and then in Roblox. So they just added their Lamborghini Euros to the game. The game is so played by so many people. That's a small activation. Really. They didn't make an entire experience. They just made an activation and trying to get an audience inside of an existing experience. That's an example. So you go to already established experiences, and sometimes those are games because they're more popular, because, well, you just play more of the games. I'm not going to play so many times and experience what I can see that you're just trying to sell me something at every point of my road. Yeah. Like I'm making a path of like 1 or 2 stages, and then after every stage you're trying to sell me something. I'm just gonna get bored. So, first level will be like brand activations in existing games, to kind of like, also I think as a like a first level to just touch on with hands the response of the platform in an easier way. And then of course the dinner experience is so powerful, like a branded word, but you need to have a strategy. You need to have, like, I think the same as social media, they don't just go there and throw a campaign just because they like the social media. I think that everything they do is almost everything is a bigger scope. And the same with immersive platforms. You go into one platform, you make an activation, you kind of like don't want to invest too much because you know that you're going to make another activation. For example, I think it was Alo Yoga. They did a multi-platform activation in a lot of metaverses. I think there are a lot of ways that you can test the platforms right now. Maybe not at the same level that you can do with the content, or just generally with styles that you can have in social media. But I think it's getting there. It's getting there, absolutely. So I think depends on the purpose, because we're going to do a few maps, and one of them, basically the brand itself, they don't want to sell inside of the experience. I'm not sure exactly why, because of course they give their reasons, but it's just, I think it's just for them hard to put into their balance sheet that kind of revenue as of now, because it's too new. So they don't want to sell. So for example, for them, the revenue is not a KPI, it's not something to track, but they're more about brand awareness and retention, because they want to do this very long campaign with more than a year. with multiple activations. So for them is to kind of like, first of all, get an audience, get a group of people that will then play your games, and especially come back. Because if you want to make a long-term activation, you need to start understanding all of the incentives that you want to put inside to make, the life of a player last very long in your experience. So I guess KPIs depends. I think the best one is, of course, how many views you get, because that's where you're starting from. If you can have so many KPIs, but if you don't get enough views on the map, then that's a big no. After that, you look at, what are people doing in the experience. You can track a few things. You can track time spent. Of course, you want to have so much time per player spent in your experience because that's valuable to you. But I think that as of now, and especially in Roblox, when you join and you make an activation or brand, you just get amazed on the different, on the numbers, because you're not expecting that a player will just stay there for 15 minutes of brand awareness. 15 minutes. On TV, you just maybe have 30 seconds of a spot, spending so much, and maybe I'm just having my coffee or just going to the bathroom because that's like a break, But
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you do the same, but I think most of us, they don't care. I know when I wait, let's wait for the ads because I love watching ads between like part 1 and part 2 of my film. Nobody does this. If you compare the money that you spend on ads in general, and when you start looking at this channel for the first time and you get the first results, you want to come back. It's a so no-brainer. Like, also, for example, let's say you open your Instagram and you scroll, and then at one point you see the ad of McDonald's. When you scroll in your stories, you see an ad of McDonald's. How long do you watch it?
2 seconds at most, 3 seconds at most.
Okay. If it's really, really interesting, maybe you even remember what's written in the ad. That's the level of our attention. But that's the truth, And maybe they're spending 5K per day on just Instagram to make everybody know that McDonald's is here. They have this so big promotion. Just come and grab one, of a burger. That's one thing. Imagine having a complete world for you where people are spending 15 to 20 minutes, maybe each day, to grab this digital collectible, which is a head of a burger, which is funny, of course, but you're talking to kids, you're talking to players, so you need to speak their language. Imagine if I'm in McDonald's world, I'm jumping on these big burgers to make myself to go at the end, like it's a parkour game. Every element of the parkour is branded McDonald's. So maybe there is a Happy Meal that you have to jump at. Well, by the way, they're removing Happy Meals, so they shouldn't refer to Happy Meals. Like any other burger, you're jumping on burgers. You get to the end, and I'm spending 15 minutes every day for a week because I want to get all the levels. Because maybe the last level will give me this so cool digital collectible, or maybe let's go digital. You can give me a free burger at the end, or just a free tour of I don't know, whatever, a free meal. Imagine the how powerful can this tool be compared to what we were talking about before. And maybe without maybe, the cost is way less. The cost is way less. Imagine how powerful. Another important element, just to close up, if after 1 week the experience is not going away, it's still there on the catalog, it's still there on Roblox forever, almost forever. So people can still play, can still making views. That experience is not going away. You don't need to pay like a fee to keep it live, It's there. And when you make a step back, you make this comparison and say, okay, why am I still doing this? Like, why is my budget going through this social media rather than try to make something way more powerful,
What do you think is the future of the metaverse? I'm not going to do the whole, 5, 10 years, because, it's very unpredictable. Loads of things can change.
Yeah.
But, I think maybe in 2 years now, I think that's far much more of a gap to see what can be done. But what do you think? What do you think the future looks like within 2 years?
I think that, well, if you look at the features, immersive experiences right now, I see like a 10, 20, 15x on the features. When I say features, I'm more about, let's talk about the physical stuff. If I'm buying something in let's say Roblox, I can have it shipped the same day to my address. Something like this. And maybe if you have an e-commerce, you can already integrate the same e-commerce website into the 3D world and have the same interaction buying the same products. But rather than just scrolling on a 2D website, you can actually like maybe see stuff on the VR or just on your PC and have a much better user experience when it comes to online shopping. That's definitely something that I see. So like a 10x on those kind of features and enhancements on generally on the user experience when it comes to online shopping. Then I see much more people. If you see the projections by Statista or I think it was JP Morgan, where everybody did their ran some numbers on the Metaverse. Maybe some of them are too over valued, to be honest, but I see a lot of more people coming to these kind of experiences, because once the barrier to entry is lower, when you don't need like 8, 12, 16 gigs around to make something work in a decent way, then you start seeing much more people coming in. Because if I can draw with my phone, well, of course now phones are the hardware that everybody spends a lot of money. So that's not really something that we can take into the equation. Let's just talk about PCs. When you're slowly having these new PCs coming out, so much powerful, and the older ones are gonna cost less, you're gonna start seeing this increase of user base going up a lot for this reason, in my opinion. And maybe as last point, I think that there's gonna be way much more. Maybe this is something also scary to the older generations, but at the end of the day, this is where the future of interaction is going. Right now, kids can use their phone maybe at 4, 3, which for me, like Instagram was out when I was maybe 15, something like this. So now and also like phones, they didn't have like very cool games. You didn't even have like the apps of YouTube, like stuff like that. So right now, a lot of generations are just spawning with their phones in their hands. Everything is, they understand a PC much faster than I used to do. You're gonna see these generations growing. You're gonna see new generations, borning, and I think that's a complete new wave. That are gonna be really digital natives at the end of the day. So they're gonna be more looking for this kind of experiences rather than maybe some physical experience that for them is not appealing because they're not used to it. I mean, they have a preference, So I think if you combine these three elements, of course, there are so many more topics, but I see these three main elements like are gonna make 3D content in general a big narrative in the future.
I think very exciting. I'm super excited, for the metaverse to become a lot more mainstream, which it pretty much already is. If you're including Roblox and Fortnite, and just to finish this off, Eduardo, what is next for yourself and MetaTheory?
Well, I think we want to really go out and educate a lot of people. Like for me, it's all about right now. I think based on the friction that we had in the past 4 years, explaining these new technologies and these new options that are available to brand or just in general, to people. I think for me, education is next. Like we want to really try to as many people as we can and explain them this transportation as we did in this beautiful hour. It's so important to me, if you're a business owner, that you at least understand what's going on in the 3D content world, because somehow someday this will hit you, and it's better to just be prepared. Just like websites in the early 2000s were like everybody was skeptical because it was associated to money laundering, to dark web and stuff like that. But then slowly this kind of stuff became like a no-brainer. Like everybody has a website. If you don't have it, you don't exist, kind of. Then it's becoming with social media right now. So it is low, but of course, as you go, things are gonna be much faster. So I see this new evolution of this new industry being much faster than the website, the .com, let's say, era, and much faster than the social media era. So I think education, like really get in front of as many people as we can and explain them like how this is something they should really take a look at. Maybe not start now, but just understand that this is gonna be a thing in the future. This is becoming a thing. So just be on the, let's say, a first mind for this. Like, don't sleep on it. Let's say don't sleep on it.
Thank you so much for listening up. You can find Eduardo's LinkedIn in the description down below. And yes, I'll see you in the next one.